This video is based on the technical analysis of EURUSD, and at this point we're on the monthly chart. And in the video, what we'll do is identify the market structure of EURUSD, market patterns, key support and resistance levels, important candlestick patterns, as well as levels at which we should be looking for those potential buying and selling opportunities. So without wasting any further time, let's get straight into the actual technical analysis. And just to recap, the last time we spoke about this particular pair, we had mentioned that we had this huge M structure over here, which had a neckline at that level more or less. And you guys by now know that whenever we have these M structures, you want to see price break into the bottom side of that neckline, heading back to the neckline to give it a test. And at that neckline is generally where we look for those potential selling opportunities. And that's exactly what happened in regard to EURUSD, where we saw the market at this level breaking the neckline to the bottom side, heading back up to the neckline to give it a test. And I believe that at this point over here where we have price currently is where we should look for those potential selling opportunities, especially if that level actually aligns with any key numbers that we have in regards to the Fibonacci retracement tool. Another thing that I also want to mention is that at this point it seems as though that price, upon coming back to the neckline, may have violated the neckline. However, just keep in mind that necklines are not lines like I have there. Necklines are areas, right? Necklines are areas, and we can say that this area over here is the neckline of this M structure. I hope you guys can see that, right? So it's still valid, and we may still see a situation where the market from where it is actually moves further down, right? Anyway, from here, what I'm going to do is head down to the weekly chart, and let's have a look. Weekly chart. Let's see. Just bear with me. Let's have a look. There we go. Here we are on the weekly chart. And just to recap, guys, remember on the monthly chart we spoke about the fact that we have that huge M structure over here, which has a neckline at that point, and we said that we want to see price upon breaking to the bottom side of that neckline, coming back to the neckline to give it a test. And at this point over here is where we should potentially be looking for those selling opportunities, especially if the level actually aligns with any key numbers that we have on the Fibonacci retracement tool, right? So here we are on the weekly chart, and what do we see on the weekly chart? On the weekly chart, we can see that the market has actually given us what seems to be a head and shoulders pattern, as you guys can see, and this pattern has a neckline at this point. Head and shoulders patterns are very much similar to M structures in that whenever we have these head and shoulders patterns, we want to see the market actually closing to the bottom side of that neckline, coming back to the neckline to give it a test. And where we have that neckline is again where we look for those potential selling opportunities. So in as far as this head and shoulders pattern at this point, a lot of traders and investors are actually waiting for the market to close below this neckline, and then what they will do is wait for the market to head back to the neckline again to give it a test. And at this point is where they would look for those potential selling opportunities, right? Especially if the neckline aligns with any key numbers that we have in regards to the Fibonacci retracement tool, right? Others at this point in time are actually looking for selling opportunities at that point, and that is because, as I said, guys, rather, we have this head and shoulders pattern, and as I said, they're looking for opportunities at this point. Others have entered and placed their stop losses just above, right? But what else do we see? Let me just actually zoom in. What else do we see on the weekly chart that we should be paying attention to? Another thing that I see in regards to the weekly chart that is very much interesting is the fact that we have this candlestick over here, as well as this one over here, in addition to this one over there, right? So what these candlesticks are bearish candlesticks with small bodies and quite long lower wicks, and where those wicks end at the bottom, there's a lot of liquidity there, and you guys know that the market will always go to where the money is, right? So for me, it makes sense actually for the market from where it is to move further down, as we have scope and we have money down there, right? It makes perfect sense for me. However, as I said, we're not just going to sell at this point. We need further confluence and confirmation in order for us to make those selling decisions, right? Having said that, at this point in time, a lot of people have already sold at this point and placed their stop losses over here as well as over there. Others actually sold at this point as they were seeing a double top where we have the neckline of the huge M structure that we spoke about on the monthly chart, right? So what else do we see, guys, on this chart that we should be paying attention to? Remember, guys, as much as I'm saying that we have this head and shoulders pattern, and that at this point we should potentially be looking for those selling opportunities. What's happening right now is that a lot of traders and investors have their stop losses just above here, as well as there rather. And we may see a situation where the market actually moves further up to grab those stop losses that are located here, right? And then moves up again to grab some of those stop losses that are located there. And then the market may potentially move further down. I hope what I'm saying makes sense. And just remember that stop losses are money. And I said to you guys that the markets will always go to where the money is, right? So before we sell at this point, I believe that we need further confluence and confirmation, right? Anyway, let's head down to the daily chart and see what's happening down there. And here we are on the daily chart. And just to recap, guys, remember on the weekly chart, we spoke about how we have this, head and shoulders pattern, with this side being the left shoulder, this being the head, and the right shoulder being at this point. And we said that ideally we should be looking for those potential selling opportunities at this point. But here we are on the daily chart. What do we see on the daily chart that we should be paying attention to? On the daily chart, if I can just zoom in a bit, we can see that actually we have another potential head and shoulders pattern forming. However, in order for this head and shoulders pattern to be valid, we need at least one candlestick at that point to close as a bearish candlestick, and that'll be confirmation that we may potentially see the market move further down, right? Just to zoom out a bit, what else do we see on the daily chart? On the daily chart, as much as we have this area over here, which is a potential head and shoulders pattern, we had also had this W structure over here, which has a neckline at that point. And just like with M structures, whenever we have these W formations, we want to see price breaking to the upside of that neckline and then coming back to the neckline to give it a test. And where we have that neckline, generally speaking, is where we look for those potential buying opportunities, right? So if I can just zoom out, right, as much as I'm saying that we have this huge head and shoulders pattern and the anticipation is for the market to move further down, what may happen is, just to zoom in again, we may see a situation where the market only moves further down to around this level. Why that level? That is because it is the neckline of this W structure, and at this level again, we may potentially see the market continue to move further up, especially because we are at the end of the day in an upward trending market, as you guys can see. And I said to you guys that we have a lot of money stuck here in the form of stop losses, and those stop losses are actually money that needs to be triggered by the market at one point or another, right? But what else do we see on the chart that we should be paying attention to? Another thing that I also want to point out is that as much as we have this W structure over here, which has a neckline at that point, and I'm saying that we may see price come back to the neckline, and at the neckline we may then again see the market move further up. Remember that whenever we have these W structures, right, what happens also is that a lot of traders and investors buy on the second leg of the W structure and they place their stop losses just below. So it may happen that the market actually moves further down to test the neckline of this W structure, and then again breaks this level to move further down to grab the stop losses that are located just below this W structure. And then we may potentially see the market move further up or even continue to move further down, because if I can just zoom out again, remember that we still have this huge head and shoulders pattern that we spoke about, remember, right? Anyway, what else do we see, guys, in regards to the daily chart? So far, guys, I don't see any actual buying or selling opportunities. What I'm doing right now is just showing you some of the possible outcomes that we may encounter in as far as EURUSD is concerned, right? But we can see that for now, the market seems to be pushing up, right? And what's probably happening, or possibly happening rather, is that the market is stop hunting, and once it's done stop hunting, we may then potentially see the market move further down. But myself personally, at this point in time, my bias is for the market to move further down at some point. Nonetheless, let's head down to the H4 chart and see what's happening down there. And here we are on the H4 chart, right? And remember also on the daily chart, we spoke about how we have this smaller head and shoulders pattern. Don't confuse this smaller head and shoulders pattern with that huge head and shoulders pattern that I spoke about, right? Don't confuse the two, right? We're now speaking about the smaller head and shoulders pattern, and let's zoom in and see what's happening, right? And on the H4 chart, we can see that this head and shoulders pattern has confirmed itself. It started at this point, the market went up, gave us this very nice structure, and ideally I would love to see the market come back to close at that level in line with where it started, right? And this pattern also has a neckline at that point, and I know that a lot of people are actually waiting for the market to close below the neckline and then for it to head back to the neckline to create a test. And where we have that neckline is where they would look for those potential selling opportunities, and their first take profit will be around this level, which is exactly where that pattern started, in my very, very humble opinion, right? So let's zoom in and see what else is happening in regards to the H4 chart, right? Remember, at this point we're focusing on this pattern over here, which is a head and shoulders pattern, and let's focus here at this point, right? Let's just zoom in a bit. Remember, guys, I said to you guys that the market may be stop hunting. We may rather see a situation where the market comes back to that high, and then at that high we may then see again the market move further down, giving us this very nice M structure, as you guys can see, right? And this M structure would have started at that level, and ideally I would love to see it, and at the very least at this level, in line with where it would have started. Can you guys see that? Having said that, remember guys, the bigger structure is this head and shoulders pattern, and as much as I'm saying that we may see an M structure over here and price moving further down to around this level, ideally we would love to see the market actually, at least for now, and as far as the H4 chart goes, moving further down to around this level, which is in line with where this structure started. But just to zoom out, right, and just to go back to the daily chart, here we are on the daily chart. Remember, on the daily chart we spoke about this huge pattern over here, right? As much as we have that huge head and shoulders pattern, remember we also have a smaller head and shoulders pattern at that point. And as much as I'm saying, guys, that we should aim at these smaller levels over here, and as far as our take profit goes, ideally I would love to see the market actually move further down to around this level, which is in line with where this head and shoulders pattern started. But as I said, guys, just to go back to the H4 chart, in as far as actual selling opportunities, at this point I don't see any confirmations, but I do know that a lot of traders will also wait for the market to close up below this trend, and once that happens they will then look for those potential selling opportunities. Others, as I said, are waiting for the market to close below this neckline, and once it does so, they will wait for it to head back to the neckline again, and at this point is where they will look for those potential selling opportunities.